Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show to talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Pandora. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, there's that opening, obviously picking up where last week's episode left off with Xander being stranded in space, running out of oxygen. He's leaving this message. It's like, oh yeah, it must have been some antimatter weapon. But more so than anything, he wanted to focus on, like, it's like, I know my training tells me I should be preserving my oxygen, but he's like, I don't think anyone's going to save me, and I'd rather just be like a last minute, recording. So he basically pours his heart out about, like, Jax is always on his mind, the last thing he thinks about when he wakes up and stuff like that, or, goes to sleep. So it's like, it's a very beautiful, sentimental, heartfelt final message. And then the moment the ship pops up and it's like, oh, you need a lift, and it's like, yeah, delete that message, which is so sad, because I'm like, oh, that's actually really sad that you did that, because it's like, but I guess for him it's just like, oh, like, you rather her not hear your sappy message like that, it's just like, it probably would have actually behooved you to do that, give her that message, because because that's you saying all the stuff you want to say but just can't bring yourself to say it, just because you're afraid to kind of go that far, because obviously it's just you bearing your heart and soul, because this is a moment where you thought you would die, but it's that thing of like, it's moments of fear and imminent death that make you kind of speak your truth, and it's like, it should inspire you to be more honest about it. But I mean, I think because of that being his final message, I think that ends up inspiring him to tell Jax later on. He's like, I don't know if like can really focus, because when it comes to, because he's like, maybe the Admiral's right, because like every time, like, maybe us being together isn't the best thing, because all I can do is focus on you. Which obviously, he's like, what if the time, because for him, he's the only one of that strike team that made it out alive. It's like, my team failed. It's like, but it's like, there's nothing you could have done, but still, it doesn't alleviate that guilt. It makes him think, what if I don't do the right thing next time? But she's like, you do the right, like, you're always in a position where you have to make the difficult choices, and I know you'll make the right choice. And it's interesting how that comes full circle later on. But obviously, they don't still know much about this anti-weapon, like what Tierney wants with it. Obviously, they believe it comes from the Protectors, but beyond that, like, they don't know. And what Eve's part to play in all this, which we have Meredith confronting Osborn about it, which she's like, oh my god, I didn't know my sister was alive. It's like, we as the audience know you're full of shit, but it's like, he's talking to Shaw later on, and it's like, does he, because he says a thing of like, my sister, she was working with us, so I was like, they probably knew that she was alive. They both probably knew, like, everyone related to this whole thing probably knew that she was still alive, but they thought she was working in the betterment of trying to stop this judgment, but it seems like she has her own role to play it. Like, she's doing her own thing, I guess, is kind of what they lumped that into. Or either that's him trying to suggest, I didn't know my sister was alive. When she was alive, I thought she was working with us, but it turns out even, before she, quote unquote, died, she was. So I don't know how he's trying to spin that. Whether even when he was talking to Shrawl, whether he was still trying to say like, oh, I didn't know. But it almost seemed like he was implying like, yes, all right, let's cut the BS. I knew my sister was alive. I don't think he'd admit that even in confinement. But it's interesting because Shrawl's there mainly to laugh at him. It's like, Shrawl can seem, we had moments of him being an asshole in season 1, but it was like, we've never seen him that much of an asshole in that regard. It was just kind of interesting. You never just see that side of him. It's weird seeing, maybe I'm not remembering, but I don't remember him smiling or laughing in season 1, so it's weird to see him like that. But nevertheless. Which at the same time, we have the whole Harlan situation, which it is what I thought it was, because I was pretty sure Harlan was like monitoring like Meredith's office with that gift he had given her, or at least there was something in her office last episode kind of pointing to you, going like, oh yeah, someone's listening, Harlan's listening, and it totally is. And we also kind of learn a little bit more how he keeps this clone body of his young. It seems like he's like draining every drop of blood out of people, or their plasma, whatever he's doing. He's killing people in order to preserve his life. I even love he has that scientist, and it's like, what, you don't know anything, why do I keep you around? And even the dude's like, actually, I don't know. It's like, oh my god, why would you say that to the dude that's hiring you? Why would you admit, like, I actually don't know why you keep me around, sir? But nevertheless, he's after this weapon because, hey, this thing has the potential to destroy anything, that this thing could be a planet killer. And obviously, he's all about power and control. So it's like it could, shape who's in control of the galaxy, having a weapon like this. So obviously he wants his eyes on it as a ruthless businessman, an opportunist that he is. But just I'm an all-around douchebag as well. But at the same time, Mata ends up finding out, like, she tracks the signature from the teleports, from the portals from, I think it was specifically Eve, but it might have been Eve and Tierney, and she thinks she's located it. So her, Xander, Raylan, and Jax go to check it out, and they land on a planet known as Clayton's World, which it turns out this is one of the migrant ships from an Earth. Migrant ships from Earth 150 years ago. Seems like they landed here. So it's like, oh, there can't be any survivors. It's been 150 years. Lo and behold, there's people. Then they meet the council. And then we kind of find out more about this world that, we find out quickly that the council is, we're like the elders. It's like, wait, where's your actual old people? It's like, we are the elders. I just turned 24. It's like, wait, that's old here? And it's like, yeah, because it turns out as they end up, because at first Jax is like, yeah, something about this place isn't right. I mean, Raylan notices it, and then Jax is kind of like, yeah, something's not right. And then, Mata's like, are you just saying it because Jennifer's taking an interest in Xander? And she's like, it's not jealousy, it's like she's hiding something. But then it's also that, like, complicated thing where it's like, Raylan kind of supporting Jax, wanted to kind of do her thing, and it's like, oh, do you have... He's like, no. She's a dear friend that is important to me, but there's only enough room in my heart for you, my love. And it's like, she's always been impulsive, and that's just, that's who Jax is. But he's like, when his mission is done, I'll tell them that, me and you are leaving, kind of going off on our own, So... with all that being said and done, we find out that basically they have this tradition where they're basically sending people off. You see this little kid, like, holding on to, I'm assuming either is his brother or his dad, and being sent off, into the portal. And it's like, what's that all about? That's what they do. That's why there's no older people, because once you've reached a certain age to a certain extent, they're just like sent through a portal. It's like, oh, it's a better world, but it's like, you don't know where that portal leaves. You've never, obviously Xander's trying to keep the peace because we need information, so we don't need to be shitting on these people's traditions. This is the way they've existed for the 150 years that they've been here. Granted, obviously you have to chunk off time because eventually they created this process. It wasn't immediate, but it's still a thing of like, this is their way of life. Like, who are we to come in judging their way of life just because we're from a different place where this wouldn't be acceptable? But it's still, because even Raylan's like, yeah, he gets the issue with it, but at the same time, like, he understands logically why they did it. He doesn't agree with it, but logically speaking, he understands, because basically their whole deal is to, like, once again, sorry about me using the word basically so damn much. They feel the need of, like, we never have to worry about, the old and, though they're no longer able, in the sense of, like, if you're kind of, which is very, like, apocalypse level-esque BS, interesting. And the whole thing of kind of almost being like, you're more of a hindrance being around because, like, more supplies and people have to take care of you and stuff like that. It reminds me of Fear the Walking Dead, because I've talked about this recently. I'm going back and I'm watching it all through for the first time, and there are characters you meet in season 2 that are very much like, oh, you're injured, we gotta kill you. Like, oh, it's like, yeah, I can heal up, but it's like you're a hindrance, you'll slow us down, you're as good as dead anyway. It's kind of like that, where it's just like you're just at these quote unquote older people. So it's like, why strain the resources and put a strain, because that means other people are gonna have to spend time looking after. It's like, why not? It's just it's an accepted thing in their world. It's an accepted tradition, but it's like you're potentially sending people to their deaths. You don't know what's on the other side, like, but it's like, this is how their society's always worked, and so they're supposed to be sent away. And obviously Xander goes at Jax for questioning this, but it's like, for Jax, it's like, they don't know what they're doing to their people. We're just gonna let them send their people to slaughter. But Xander is like, we're here because we're here for a mission. Because even Raylan had said, well, regardless of how quick on a draw that Jax can be, that she can be a little impatient and just, quick to jump at stuff. It's like she still knows that this is a mission and it's important. We got to focus on that. Obviously, to be fair, that's always even in season 1, that's an apparent aspect of Jax. Like, she feels a certain way. Like, she kind of leads more of her emotions, whereas, especially the CIS would probably want you to be more like logic based. It's like, focus on your mission, remove the emotion of it. So for her, she's probably like, I'm the only one that kind of seems like they care. Like, all of you seem like you're okay with it. So he's telling her to stay here. But Jax, Mata, and Raylan go and examine the portal more specifically, and they find out it's actually not stable. But it's like, aren't all portals? It's like, no, because the way portals operate, I guess they're open short enough amount of time so that they're able to be stable. But I guess because this one was open and it stayed open for so long, it's always unstable for a long period of time. But because it's open all the time, I think that made it even more unstable. So now it's like, okay, they test it out, and it's like the thing Raylan sent in got destroyed. So it's like anyone that gets sent through that portal is killed. And it's like they end up looking through the records and finding out they knew this entire time. Jennifer knew the entire time. The council knew the entire time that they're basically sending their people to slaughter. And we find out that Jennifer is actually, her and the entire council are the original crew from the ship. That basically they've been killing off their own descendants. These aren't just like your people. Like, you're the reason why these people exist. You're kind of you're basically their ancestor. These are your descendants you're wiping out. It's like, how can you do that? It's like, because this keeps them young. That's why they're all around. Like, so that's the very effed up thing about this. And it's like, it's all about survival. This is because at first, Xander was trying to get her to leave. It's like, oh, you can come back to Earth. It's like, why would we want to leave? This is our place. But it's like, that's why you don't want to leave. Because if you go too far from the portal, you're going to start aging and potentially rapidly age until the point you die, because you're really over 100 years old. So, and it's so interesting to find that out, And just before they could do anything, lo and behold, who shows up? Eve. And obviously Eve is bringing, Jax has got so many questions. Turns out, yes, her dad is actually dead. We don't know how her mom survived, but she's like, I tried to save your dad, but I couldn't. She's here because she's working on the mission that basically she knows about the portal. She knew what they were doing and she didn't stop them because it's part of her research, because she had to look into this. I mean, you're like, what research? What are you trying to do? Why is Tierney so important to you? Because it's like, oh, because Tierney turns out to be her daughter. And it's like, oh, that makes you guys, like sisters, which immediately my brain was like, no, it doesn't. Because for one, Jax is technically your daughter, technically not. So she's not really your daughter. Tierney is more your daughter than Jax is. So it's not even, so I'm sure even in Jax's mind, it's like, oh, she's actually more of your daughter than I am. Like, I was just kind of, an experiment you were meant to keep an eye. I was Pandora. I was meant to, you keep an eye on. But she says, like, I did love you. And then even Jax holds on to it. She's like, did? She's like, I do love you. The fact that she had to correct herself multiple times. She said, I did. Do. Always will love you, but it brings it into question, because you've lied the entire time, not letting her grieve for you for an entire year thinking you were dead. You basically hidden who she really is, and you knew the entire time. So it's like lie upon lie. So it's like, how am I supposed to believe anything you say? Now she wants to kill my friends. It's like, yeah, I'm sure she does. Jennifer's going to do that, but it's like she wants Jax spared because that is her daughter, regardless of everything. But Xander, because obviously Jennifer's like, oh, why don't you stay here, Xander? I'll let one of you live as you stay here. And he's like, that's not going to happen. She's like, fine, you know too much. You got to die too. Luckily, they fight back. Mata gets captured by Jennifer, but the other Pandora shows up and saves the day. And it's like, oh, why save us? Because Eve asked her to. And it turns out that judgment has already come. Like, the fact of the matter is, the other Pandora has already made her judgment on humanity. She was like, I made that call 22 years ago that humans weren't worth it, and the fact of the matter is Osborn and them locked me in that case, alone in that darkness with nothing but my dreams. And it's like, Jax is like, they did what they thought was right. Yes, it was wrong. They shouldn't have done it, but that's what they did at the time because they thought it was the best way to kind of stop everything. But it turns out why this is so important is because this is the only, like, because they're trying to destroy all the portals, because it's like, if we could get if you have access to the portals, the judges are basically, I forgot what they call them, because they even said in the episode, the people that, you know, Pandora goes to make the judgment about whether humanity. It's so interesting. I didn't even remember this one, because obviously spoilers for the 100. The 100 kind of ties into this in that same regard too, which I think is kind of fascinating, because it has a similar thing like kind of popping up in the final season, that this whole story is kind of built around like beings judging whether humanity should exist or not, and obviously Pandora being the one that decides, you know, being the I guess you can make the argument the beings are kind of like the executioners more so, and Pandora is the judge. But it's a thing of like, she doesn't believe humanity's worth it. Like, she's seen what they're capable of. And obviously Jax is like, no, like, let me show you, together we could go to them. We can change everything, you know? Because it's like, if all these portals get destroyed, it will be impossible to go and change the being's mind, because Jax nor Pandora could go to change their mind. So all the portals being destroyed would be their last hope. So that's why Eve is doing this, I guess, because she wanted to make sure the portals weren't destroyed, hence why she was, you know, I don't know. It's still not 100% clear what she wants out of this, why she is working with this other Pandora, what Tierney wants out of this, you know, what their plan is. But you have Xander pushing the other Pandora into the portal, which he said like, oh, she was trying to kill you. I didn't rewind it because I was like, wait, what? I didn't see. Maybe she was about to pull out a weapon or something. I didn't remember. Or maybe she was about to do something and he caught eye of it. Whatever the case may be, pushed her into the portal, killing her. And it's like, what did you do? Now, they end up, you know, we hard cut to, like, Xander letting all the people on, you know, Clayton's world know, hey, this is what happens. This is what the deal is. But it's like, yeah, they're not going to leave. Regardless of knowing the truth, this is still their world. They're just going to build upon it. You know, it's like they'll grow old and die, but they'll live their way and not just by this old, antiquated system, this very sacrificial system that was set in place by Jennifer and the rest of the council. So... But at the same time, there is a complicated thing between, you know, Jax and Xander now, because he made that choice. And even Eve being like, oh, like, she will never forgive you. And he's like, I do love your daughter. I'll do anything for her. He's like, that's exactly my point. Like, the fact of the matter is, your love will be either your destruction or hers. So it's like, and she's like, I'm exactly where I want to be. It's just like, she knows so much, and she's just coming off kind of like... I don't know. She seems like she's trying to be like, oh, I'm a good mother. I do love you and everything. But it's like you're filled with secrets and you got this look about you like everything's going according to plan. But sadly, you know, it has created this rift between them because, you know, Xander's like, did I do the right thing? And then you even have Raylan be like, if you hadn't done it, I would have. And he was like, I appreciate you saying that. I actually needed to hear that someone else agreed with him, that, you know, because at the end of the day, he made that decision. Was it the right decision? From Eve's point of view, no. From Jack's point of view, no. But like for him, if it means protecting the person I love, I'm willing to do anything. Then, you know, Jax may come to resent him for that. Maybe she will fully understand at one point in time. Whatever the case may be, this has brought about a rift between them. I should also talk about this other subplot that I thought was kind of interesting. There's the whole Zazie and Jet thing, because it's like, oh yeah, like our study partners. It's like, yeah, they're kind of off doing their thing. So it's like, yeah, not really the best partners to have, you know, study partners in this. But then we find out like Jet's like, oh, I got something else, because he was asking too many damn questions. He's about like, oh, what are they up to? It's like, that's why I'm like, because the way he was going through, Jack's stuff last episode or something. I'm like, he's working for somebody, isn't he? And then he's just kind of like, I forgot what the circumstances. All right, basically, he like Zazie ends up catching him like breaking into Straw's office, and it's like, oh, you're still in the test or something, right? It's like, either you tell him or I'm going to tell him. And he's like, stay away from Straw or whatever. And she's not listening. She brings it up to Straw. He's very like, all right, sure, you're bringing that up to Jet. It's like he doesn't care. I'm like, what the fuck is that about? And he seems like such a hard ass when it comes to being a educator, and he's just kind of letting that fly by the seat. And I'm like, what the hell is that about? My immediate thought was that when Jet was like, he's not who you think he is, or saying something, or stay away from Shaw, I was like, that's your dad, isn't it? He's actually your dad. Or like, that's what I was wondering. I mean, that might also be why he's so like, let Jet do whatever the hell he's want to. Or it's either dad or Jet. Maybe Straw is part of some other group, and they put Jet up to spying on things. Because he justifies by being like, I was going around because in actuality I'm a janitor, and she was excited about it because she's like, oh my god, it's cool. Because obviously because of he lost his scholarship and his family doesn't have the money to send him to this school and everything, so he's working as a janitor to kind of pay off stuff. And she's like, oh good, like all these rich and powerful people screwed him, like that's why we got to stay together, Jet. Which I'm like, he had to be lying through his teeth, right? That's why I immediately was like, I don't know. There's something off about that. I mean, granted, he was obviously he's bringing up, like, obviously he's like, yeah, apologetic for the douche stuff that he did to last season and everything, but it's still like, there's got to be something more to that, like, and it's something, whatever it is, it's connected to Shaw, especially considering how nonchalant Shaw was like, you want to bring that up to him? Get the hell out of my office. So there's that. Then there's also that antimatter weapon. It ends up, there's one currently going off. It's like a giant wave of it, which I'm assuming maybe that's the judgment being sent down. Like, yeah, maybe the moment Pandora died, I mean, who's to say she is dead? I mean, maybe she is, maybe she isn't. But the moment she died, the clock started ticking, because now that wave ends up going through a Zatarian battleship and ended up destroying it, but the wave at its current pace will eventually reach Zara, so it's like, it's literally about to bring down a planet. So it's like, what can you do to stop it? Like, they don't know enough about the weapon, and it's like, whatever you bring in its way, like, maybe Jack's hat in some shape or form can stop it. And maybe that's why Eva's like, oh, I need to be here, so if you want my help, you're gonna have to let me go, or something like that. And so Jax will probably trust her mom, let her go, and to find a way to stop it. But then, like, that plays a part in whatever plan they have. Like, this is all calculated and planned out, maybe. Who knows? There's a lot of layers to this whole situation. I'm interested to see where ultimately all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.